When you're going through paper two, it's important that you understand the timings. So you're allowed exactly 1 hour 45. So that's 1 hour on section A and 45 minutes on section B. So you need to consider your timings so that you get all of your best ideas across. So remember, you need to accommodate in the reading time, which should take you about 10 to 15 minutes. And as you're reading through the extracts, you need to be making notes and think very carefully about these words. So what is the writer's viewpoint and perspectives? How do they get this across in their text? How do they feel about the topic? How is this conveyed? So pay careful attention to the language that they're using and that the tone that they're using to get this across. So this is something that needs to be considered deeply. So when you get to question 1, you need to read from the line numbers that are given, and then you need to pick out 4 of the statements which are true. So again, your key skills here is comprehension. You need to understand what it is that you've read, go back to the extract and find the correct answers. So this should take you about 4 minutes. As you get to question 2, the key words. So in this example, it says, the children at the cinema in source A and the children at the factory in source B have different experiences of childhood. So this is what I'll be underlining. And keep underlining as you're going through, because it's imperative that you're constantly engaging, interacting with the statement. Then it says, use details from both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the different experiences of the children. So what does experiences mean? This is what you need to ask yourself. How do the children behave? What factors influence their life? These are the things that you need to infer about. So when you're inferring for this question, after you've picked out your points, you've used the quotes, you need to infer. And when it's you inferring, you need to think about ideas that are not in the extract. You need to think beyond that. So what is it that the writer hasn't really told us? What is it that we can guess based on the ideas that are being predicted or presented? So this is what we need to consider. So when you're doing question 2, you need to ideally write 2 paragraphs, one on source A, one on source B, and start with a clear point. So in this example, you need to think about the experiences of the children, make a clear point, add your evidence, and then you're inferring. You're not analyzing the language. You're saying that based on the information, the quotes that you've picked up, what is this showing us about their experiences? What is it showing about their lives, their struggles? And 8 marks, so you want to be spending about 12 minutes on this question. So 2 paragraphs, one on source A, one on source B. All right. When we get to question 3, so this is now getting you to think about language analysis. So for question 3, it's the same skills as paper 1, question 2. So now you're given a specific line number from source A. How does the writer use language? This is something that is always going to come up. So as soon as you see language, you're thinking about adjectives, verbs, imagery, keywords, phrases. What are the connotations of these? And then it says the keyword describe. How is the language used to describe eating the sweets? So what keywords, phrases really stand out to you? What connotations can you draw from that? 12 marks. You want to be spending about 15 minutes. I'd say 2 really detailed paragraphs where you're combining a range of quotes, ideally about 2 quotes per paragraph, really zooming into the words, phrases, and spending your time developing on the language analysis. As you get to question 4, this is the big one. So now it's a comparative question. You need to refer to the whole of source A with the whole of source B. So again, it comes back to your reading, understanding, comprehension. Then it says, compare how the writers convey their different attitudes to sweets. What's their attitudes like to sweets? How do the writers feel towards it? What's their viewpoint? What are they thinking? How do we know this? What quotes can we pick out that really show what the writer's thinking and feeling? This keyword attitudes, again, perspectives, viewpoints, feelings, thoughts. this is what you want to really establish within the question. And how do we work this out? We want to be picking out the key words, the key phrases that the writers are using, really analyzing them and thinking about their tone. What kind of tone are they establishing? How do they really feel? And how is this feeling reflected within the language that is used? It's also important. Students always overlook the fact that the writer's viewpoints and their attitudes can change. So throughout the extract, you want to be thinking about, does their viewpoint, their attitude, their feelings remain the same? Does it develop? Does it change? If it does, you need to pick up on that and really get that across. So for this question, I'll spend about 20 minutes on this. I'd have 2 really detailed comparative paragraphs. So in the same paragraph, you can discuss source A and source B. And then in the next paragraph, you can do the same, source A and source B, highlighting the different attitudes to the suites and what it is that the language is showing us, linking it constantly back to this focus, the different attitudes to the suite. So make sure you're interacting heavily with the focus, which is this aspect here.